Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajukacharya Astotra Satasri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shyam Mukund Radha Punigiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Puri Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamana Mai Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.
Hari Hari Bol. Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you everyone for being here for Srimad Bhagavatam class with His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. It is Friday, February 17th, 2023 in New York, a day later in Vrindavan. We're reading in the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, 14th chapter, Pregnancy of Diti in the Evening, starting tonight with text number 32. Hoping you will share these classes with your friends. And if you'd like to lead tonight's closing kirtan, let me know. And we're so much looking forward to hearing your questions and comments. And we're so glad you could be with us, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Akendra Prabhu. And thank you to all. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Ato Pasprisha Shalinam Prananayam Yavagyataha Jayam Jalapa Jayam Jajapa Virajam Brahma Jyoti Sanatanam. Thereafter, the Brahmin, Kashyapa, took his bath in the water and controlled his speech by practicing trance, meditating on the eternal effulgence, and chanting the holy Gayatri hymns within his mouth. Purport. As one has to take bath after using the toilet, so one has to wash himself with water after sexual intercourse, especially when at a forbidden time. Kashyap Muni meditated on the impersonal Brahmajyoti by chanting the Gayatri mantra within his mouth. When a Vedic mantra is chanted within the mouth so that only the chanter can hear, the chanting is called japa. But when such mantras are chanted loudly, it is called kirtan. The Vedic hymn, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, can be chanted both softly to oneself or loudly. Therefore, it is called the Mahamantra, or the great hymn. Kashyap Muni appears to be an impersonalist. Comparing his character with that of Thakur Haridas, as referred to above, it is clear that the personalist is stronger in sense control than the impersonalist. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita as parang drishtva nivartate. That is, one ceases to accept lower grade things when one is situated in a superior condition. One is supposed to be purified after taking bath and chanting Gayatri, but the Mahamantra is so powerful that one can chant loudly or softly in any condition, and is protected from all the evils of material existence. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshun Militam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Putale Swayam Rupa Kodamahyam Tadati Shapadantikam Vande Hang Shri Guru Shri Jatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Stam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lolita Sri Vishakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kamshana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vanchako Pitarubhyascha Kripa Sindhobhye Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Ato Pasprisya Shalinam Pranan Ayam Yavagyataha Vyayan Jajapa Virajam Brahma Jyoti Sanatan. So after this transgressive sexual act, the Kashyap took his bath for purification and pranayama, practiced trance, controlled his speech, and meditated, chanted Brahma Virajam, Jajapa Virajam, and Brahma Jyoti Sanatanam. He meditated on Brahma, the impersonal Brahma, or the Gayatri hymns. Brahma Jyoti Sanatanam, meditated on the Brahma Jyoti. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point that the devotee is in the better position by chanting the holy name of the Lord in the personal understanding. He comes to the higher position. All right. Yes, Sakendra Prabhu.
Thank you, Maharaj. I was wondering about this, and I'm glad I have the opportunity to ask you. Several places, of course, the importance of the Maha Mantra is spelled out, the Taraka Brahmanam for the age, etc. But here, Prabhupada says something that I thought was interesting, that because the Hare Krishna mantra can be chanted both softly to oneself or loudly, therefore, he uses the word therefore, it is called the Maha Mantra. I just thought that was interesting, that, it's like a dual practice, a dual purpose, but I don't know much about mantras, so I don't know if there are any other mantras like that, but he does sort of single it out by this particular quality.
Yes, it's therefore it's called the Maha Mantra. There are many reasons, I suppose, why one could call it the Maha Mantra, but this is one that Prabhupada points out here. You can use it for you can practice it by japa or in kirtan. So either way, yes. I also don't know what the mantra tattva concerning so many other mantras. Okay, and today, going forward, I don't see all the pictures on the screen. So if there's a raised hand, you can perhaps raise it in the chat box, or someone can let me know. And we do have a question from Vijay Krishna. Controlled speech. Let's look. Bhakyataha, controlling speech in Bhagavad Gita also. Ayatabhakaya manasa. The speech control of speech is, of course, described in several places in Bhagavad Gita. One is austerity of speech. Satyam priya hitam chayat. Where's that? Anudvega karam vakyam. Satyam priya hitam chayat. Abhyasanam chaya pavanmayam tapuchate. Now, where is that going to be? Let's see. Where's that?
The austerities of speech.
Yeah.
Chapter
18.
17, text 14, text 15.
15. Anuvega kodam bhakyam satyam priyahitam. Svadhyaya abhyasanam chaiva vanmayam tapuchate. Anuvega kodam vakyam. Anuvega kodam, to control the urge to speak. And satyam, to say something that's true and beneficial and pleasing. And svadhyaya abhyasanam, reciting Vedic hymns. These are all control of the speech.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Itistu vridita tena karma vadyena bharata upasangamya viprarshim ato mukhya vyapashata. O son of the part family, Diti, after this, went nearer to her husband, her face lowered because of her faulty action. She spoke as follows. Purport: when one is ashamed of an abominable action, one naturally becomes down-faced. Diti came to her senses after the abominable sexual intercourse with her husband. Such sexual intercourse is condemned as prostitution. In other words, sex life with one's wife is equal to prostitution if the regulations are not properly followed. Well, here's at the end, of course, a striking quotation, which in one sense can serve as an answer for those who say that, well, sex life in married life doesn't have to be so restricted. Here, all right, it doesn't have to be, but then what is it? It's condemned as prostitution. Sex life with one's wife. Someone says, well, the main regulation is just, we have the strict standard and then we have other standards, and it's really enough that sex should just be within marriage. But here, yeah, all right, that's better than sex outside of marriage, but sex life with one's wife is equal to prostitution if the regulations are not properly followed. That's not much of an endorsement, is it? Srila Prabhupada's clear about this, that there are rules and regulations to be followed, even within the Grahastha ashram, even within, even within married life. So that was the problem, that the sex was within marriage, but it was still dharma virudh, contrary to religious principles, and therefore it's condemned as prostitution. Also, it's interesting, psychologically, I would suppose is the way to put it, how Diti has changed here. She was all urging her husband to the point of clutching on his cloth. Please, 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 and it'll make you famous, and it'll bring honor to the family, and you have to save me from the onslaught of material desire. I depend on you for that, and all the other wives have children. I'm the only one who doesn't have a child, and all of these, and we can't wait. So that was Diti before, and after Vridita, ashamed, because karma avadya, it was not proper. It was avadya. Let's see what my party says about avadya. Blamable, not to be praised. Vajya would mean worthy of praise. Not to be praised. Blamable, low, inferior. So karma avadya, it was not at all good. And upasangamya viprarshim, she approached her husband adhamukh, with a downcast face. when we know that we've done something really bad, then adhamukha, and we hang our heads. So that was before it was something very much to be desired, and after it's something to be ashamed of. And yes, something to be ashamed of. Not all sex, but sex, contrary to regulative principles, is not a source of happiness. Yashastra vidamutsrija vartate kamakarta nasasidhim avapnoti nasukam naparamagatim. If we disregard the directions of Shastra, kamakarta, just to satisfy our own material desires, especially sex desire, nasasiddhim avapnoti, it stands in the way of attaining perfection. Nasasiddhim avapnoti, and doesn't even bring happiness. Doesn't even bring happiness, to say nothing of the attaining the supreme destination. So this was the result, that afterwards it was shame and regret. Even of course, well, we won't go there. We'll just talk about, well, even proper sex, it doesn't really lead to happiness. There's the Latin proverb, all animals are sad after sex. The build up, the expectation, the eagerness, that's all before, and afterwards it's kind of a letdown. It's is that all it was, or whatever? Okay. Saraswati, it's stated that Titi felt ashamed and came to her senses after the fact. Some people don't even feel ashamed after abominable acts. Plus, if only there were some sleep button to switch ourselves off when we know we're out of control, and become active when we rein in our intelligence. Well, a sleep button, yes, or a, what would you say? A mode of goodness button, or it's really a restraint button. It's a restraint button. It's by practice. That what is that? Kama krodho bhavam vegam sayukta sukhi naraha prakshirira vimoksha ya something yashudhum prakshirira vimokshanat. Is that chapter 5, chapter 3? Sayukta sukhi naraha. Where is that verse? Who's going to help me out with that verse? It's 5:23. Shaknoti habi yashodhum prakshirira vimokshanat kama krodhodhavam vegam sayukta sasukhi nara. And the previous verse was also relevant. Yehi samsparsha bhoga dukkha yoniya evate adyantavanta konteya nateshu ramate bhuta. Yehi samsparshaja bhoga. Bhoga means sense gratification. Sparshaja means born of touch with the senses. Samsparshaja, complete touch. I take that to be indicative of sex life because it's completely involving for the senses. Samsparshaja bhoga, that sex enjoyment or any enjoyment of the senses. Dukkha yoniya evate. It becomes a source of suffering. If only because it increases our attachment to this material body, which is the root cause of suffering. Or it may even cause greater suffering in this life. Adyantavanta kontya, it has a beginning, it has an end. Nateshu ramate buddha, therefore the intelligent person doesn't look for pleasure in that kind of happiness. Shaknoti iha eva yoshodha. In this world, iha, if one is able to control, to tolerate the senses, praksharira vimokshanat, before leaving this body, kama krodhodbhavam vegam, and he's able to control kama, krodha, bhaya, lust, anger, fear, udbhavam. The udbhavam means the vega, the urges born of kama and krodha, lust and anger. Sayukta, he's connected with Krishna, and sasukhi, naraha, he's a happy human being. So this is the button that we want to push, the tolerate button. Praksharira vimokshana, before leaving this body. But it doesn't mean that we should just wait till a few days before we're going to leave the body, that I'll indulge in illicit sex and whatever other sense gratification well into my old age. And then sometime before I leave this body, all right, now I renounce. That's not a very good proposition. The one thing is, how will we renounce at the end when we haven't practiced? It may happen by some good fortune that one becomes disgusted at the end. Maharaj Yati was addicted to sex and sex and sex and sex. And finally, in the mature stage, disgusting. So he gave it up. But that was Yayati. Others may not be so fortunate. They'll remain attached till the very end. What is that? The demons that is described up to the very end. Asha, Pasha, Shatarbo, Kama, Krodha, Brian, Ian, Kama, Bogartam, but that's not what I'm thinking of, not that verse, but let's find it. Chintama parameyam cha pralyantam upashritaha. Pralyantam upashritaha kama upabhoga paramahitavaditi nishtita. This is the foolish demons, or the not only foolish but bewildered and warped. Chintama parameyam cha. Their anxiety is limitless. Pralayantam upashrita. Up to the very end of life. Pralaya. Antam. Pralayantam. Up to the end of life, they're taking shelter of sense gratification, and they're full of anxieties, therefore. Kama upabhoga parama. This is the highest thing we know. Kama upabhoga, sense gratification, sex. Etavaditi nishtita. This is as far as their intelligence goes. So we shouldn't cultivate that kind of life, a life of anxiety in sense gratification, with the idea that, well, when I'm old, I'll give it up. One should mutate, in Bhagavatam it said, urgently, one should take, just like deity, she's urgent, gotta have a child, gotta have a child, we have to have sex now, can't wait. But we should develop that urgency. I have to engage in Krishna consciousness now. I have to follow the regulative principles now. I have to get serious now. I have to read these books, read these books now. If that urgency is redirected toward Krishna, then our life becomes successful. That message was given by Chintamani to Bilvamangala Thakur. You know the story, how he went through so much difficulty, leaving the funeral of his father and trekking through a storm and somehow making his way over the river with the help of a dead body and getting himself over the wall by grabbing onto a snake, and then somehow or other finally knocking on the door of his mistress. And, you can imagine how he appeared all wet and whatever. And she looked at him and said, "Oh, Bilvamangala, if only you had this much attraction for Krishna, as you do for the body of a woman, how your life would be nice." So he took it seriously and attained perfection. Okay. Anything else? Okay.
There are several things in the chat box, Maharaj. I'm not sure if you can see them.
I can't. My chat box, for some reason, I guess they have to get their act together there at Zoom. It doesn't automatically move down. It used to, which created other problems. It was do it while you were typing. Someone was typing, but now it just placidly stays where it is and doesn't advance you. Okay. So that's what we don't want. We don't want to be stuck in one place and not make advancement. It's amazing, Sri Bhikran says, how Diti's intelligence switched on immediately afterwards. It seems to have been just a few minutes later. Yes, that's how it is. That beforehand, one is enraged, or one is full of lust, or full of lust, or full of anger, full of resentment, or full of whatever it is in some incident. And then afterwards, the intelligence kicks in. What have I done? I've killed my wife. What have I done? I've broken my vows. What have I done? I've done this, I've done that. And then one regrets it afterwards. There's a striking passage in the Bible, actually, concerning Tara and, let's see, and her brother. And let's see. Oh my goodness. But the history is, I don't know if anyone has, anyway, we may not get it word for word. But let's see. Let's see. No. Let's see. Sorry to be, if I can't find it right away, I'm going to give up. Yeah, there it is. Tamar, that was her name. 2 Samuel, second book of Samuel. New King James Version, chapter 13. Absalom, the son of David, had a lovely sister whose name was Tamar, and Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Amnon was so distressed over his sister Tamar that he became sick, for she was a virgin, and it was improper for Amnon to do anything to her. But Amnon had a friend whose name was Jonadab, the son of Shimeah, David's brother. Now Jonadab was a crafty man, and he said to him, "Why are you, the king's son, becoming thinner day after day? Will you not tell me?" Amnon said, "I love Tamar, my brother Absalom's sister." So Jonadab said to him, "Lie down on your bed and pretend to be ill. And when your father comes to see you, say to him, 'Please let my sister Tamar come and give me food, and prepare the food in my sight, that I may see it and eat it from her hand.'" Then Amnon lay down and pretended to be ill, and when the king came to see him, Amnon said to the king, "Please let Tamar, my sister, come and make a couple of cakes for me in my sight, that I may eat from her hand." And David sent home to Tamar, saying, "Now go to your brother Amnon's house and prepare food for him." So Tamar went to her brother Amnon's house, and he was lying down. Then she took flour and kneaded it, made cakes in his sight, and baked the cakes. And she took the pan and placed them out before him, but he refused to eat. Then Amnon said, have everyone go out from me. And they all went out. Then Amnon said to Tamar, bring the food into the bedroom, that I may eat from your hand. And Tamar took the cakes which she had made and brought them to Amnon, her brother, in the bedroom. Now, when she had brought them to him to eat, he took hold of her and said to her, come lie with me, my sister. But she answered him, no, my brother, do not force me, for no such thing should be done in Israel. Do not do this disgraceful thing. And I, where should I take my shame? And as for you, you would be like one of the fools in Israel. Now, therefore, please speak to the king, for he will not withhold me from you. However, he would not heed her voice, and being stronger than she, he forced her and lay with her. And then we come to the point. Then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred with which he hated her was greater than the love with which he had loved her. And Amnon said to her, arise, be gone. So she said to him, no, indeed, this evil of sending me away is worse than the other evil you did to me. But he would not listen to her. Then he called his servant who attended him and said, here, put this woman out, away from me, and bolt the door behind her. And so on. And the story goes on. Quite the history. And in some ways, parallel to what we've read in Srimad Bhagavatam, we heard about Brahma becoming attracted to his daughter. So here, this Amnon is attracted to his sister. And although he's obsessed with her and obsessed with the idea of enjoying with her, as soon as he gets his so-called enjoyment, he hates her. He hates her. So this is how it goes. Of course, that's graphic and what should we say? Abominable. So this is how it is, that we think that we're going to enjoy by illicit sex, and then afterwards we're ashamed or we're disgusted or resentful. You know, the devil made me do it, you made me do it, whoever it was. So these things are going on. So this has been known. It's not that this is some sort of Hindu thing. All over the world, everyone wants to enjoy sense gratification, and all over the world, later, it's a disappointment or a source of frustration, or disappointment, frustration, anger. Rajasastu palam dukkam. The result of passion is suffering. And we believe, by the power of Maya, we believe that the result of action and mode of passion will be greater enjoyment. The whole modern civilization rests on this idea that by passion, we'll have a better life, a more exciting life, a more free life, a more successful life, a victorious life, a glorious life. But instead, what we get is miserable life. On a global level, we get wars and miserable cities and a way of life full of pollution and pollution, disease. And individually, we're frustrated, depressed, suicidal, or obsessed, drug addicted, what have you. This is all from passion and ignorance. So to come to the transcendental platform is such a boon for the living entity, and that's his real business. Okay, there's a lot of questions here in the chat. Let's take a look. Mari Gupta, as a Grihasta, Hare Krishna, I was never told that the time of day or night is important, only that there should be possibility of conception and to chant 50 rounds. This incident adds another dimension to illicit sex, since there's married and there's a chance of conception. It should be not just married, chance of conception. They're also proper. The daytime is not the time for sex. Evening is not the time for sex. It's called Nishicharya. This we heard from Hari Parshad Prabhu. Yes, that Nishicharya. It's the business of nighttime. And yes, 50 rounds. Okay. And purposeful. So 50 rounds means it's certainly purposeful. Gurudas, I'm having trouble finding the words I want to form, but Diti was overwhelmed by the desire to serve the Lord by producing sons. She could not accomplish this without crossing the line into a sinful demand for sex life, which she was terribly ashamed of. An attempt at a question, are there other occasions when a devotee pushes forward his or her desire to serve the Lord, even though that service will involve a significant fault? Should the fact that a fault's involved always take precedence over an attempt to serve the Lord in a major way? Well, first, before we get to the question itself, let's look at the premises. I'm not really persuaded that Diti was overwhelmed by an intense desire to serve the Lord by producing sons. It seems that it was a selfish desire. First of all, there was just, what would you say, blatant or unadulterated or straightforward sex desire, kama. And the context was that, yes, she wanted a son. At least that was there, that I should have children. That's another kind of kama. There's the list in second canto of different kinds of desire, praja kama. So praja, the desire for a child. But it's not stated that anywhere in the text that she had an overwhelming service desire. There's no indication that she had a desire to serve the Lord at all. All we hear about is her kama, her lust for sense gratification and for having her own child. So I think the premises are not quite valid, but premises to the question. But then the question is, what if a service involves a significant fault? In the Bhagavad Gita, in the 18th chapter, Krishna answers that question by saying that every activity is covered by some fault. Dhumenagnir ivavrita. Let's see. Yeah, sahajam karma konteya sadosham apinatyajay sarvarambha hidoshena dhumenagnir ivavrita. Along with sahajam, born with the activity, born with the karma, is its own fault. Sahajam karma kontya sadosham. Along with every action comes some kind of fault. Prabhupada gives the example of Brahman has to perform sometimes animal sacrifices, or he becomes the priest of some less than pious man. A Vaishya has to tell lies. A Shudra has to serve a bad master. So every duty brings with it some fault. Arjuna had to fight against his relatives. Sarva ramba hidoshena, but not tyajay. One should not give up one's prescribed duty. Dume nagniri vavritaha. All duties are sarva ramba, all undertakings are faulty. Just as fires all have smoke. So one should not give up one's prescribed duties. Not some activity that's faulty because we're not following the scripture or we're not following the orders of the spiritual master. It's our own idea and therefore faulty. But if by carrying out the orders of the spiritual master, some fault is involved, the carrying out that order is more important. Okay, let's see. Saraswati says, Maharaj Pandu also couldn't control his senses, and he died due to the act and curse. And his wife Madri felt so guilty and became a sati, leaving Kunti to care for the children. Yes, that's another example. Pandu couldn't control his senses, and he died. He'd been cursed that if you have sex with your wife, you'll die. But he just, no, I have to. Lost his intelligence. And Madri felt guilty about it and became a sati. Kunti also would have become a sati, but she stayed behind for the children. Yes. A female disciple of Prabhupada, Tulsipriya says, once told me, can't find the reference, that Srila Prabhupada said that even a married woman is prostituting herself to her husband, presumably because non-devotee women get married out of a desire for some kind of material benefit. It seems that even though he said women should be married, maybe marriage is simply making the best use of a bad bargain. Well, yes, it's always a bad bargain. This embodied life is a bad bargain, and sex is troublesome, licit or illicit. But licit is the best thing, and it can even be engaged in service. But I haven't seen a quote to this effect that that a woman is prostituting herself to her husband. That's certainly said about Diti, that she behaved like a prostitute. But a wife who follows regulative principles is called Dharma Patni, a religious wife, religious wife. So sex is not, Prabhupada said sex is not condemned, but contrary to regulative principles. Back to the Bible, Deborah Damodar Priya says Lot was depressed in the Old Testament after he had sex with his two daughters. I guess if we read through the literature of the world, we'd find lots of this. There are many examples of having sex and then afterwards regretting it. Praveen says, argument, if the husband and wife are having a troubled relationship because of desires not being fulfilled, better they break the lesser standard to save the marriage and peacefully do the temple services and personal sadhana. Later on, as they mature, these will eventually fade away. Why break the marriage in advance for the stricter principle? that's a whole subject. But it's sort of an either-or argument. Either we break the regulative principles or our marriage goes to hell. But the better thing is that you follow the regulative principles. We don't say no sex. But your marriage is not going to become wonderful because you have more sex. And there may be other problems. One could also make the case that if you increase the sex life in your marriage, the marriage becomes all about sex, then if there's some disappointment in sex, then we start to think, well, let me go elsewhere. And then it's not your abstinence that breaks the marriage, but it's your sex that breaks the marriage. The man starts to think, why am I still having sex with this old lady when there are so many younger and more attractive propositions? Or they both start wondering, why is my sex life not giving me happiness? I must be with the wrong person. And so it's not, I'm not persuaded that abstinence means marriages break and having enough sex means, or having abundant, shall we say, sex means that everything will work out lovely. But the sex is allowed. But all right, you're married, have sex. But if you're going to have sex, better to follow the regulative principles. Then it's legal. There's no shame, nothing dishonorable about it. Later, as they mature, these desires will eventually fade away. But I'm not persuaded that by, and there's an argument about this in by the mundane writer Tom Wolfe. He's written an essay. They have referred to it before. The boiler room and the computer. The argument is that the human being is like a boiler room with all this pressure that builds up, pressure. And so finally you have to open up the steam valve before the boiler explodes. But as Mr. Wolf points out, so far we haven't discovered boilers. Doctors haven't discovered boilers within people's anatomy. And he says the better analogy is the yes gate in computer science. You get to a choice box and it's yes or no. If A, then B, and so on. So it can be called a yes gate. So you say you're opening up those yes gates and they cascade. Yes. So the result of indulgence is greater indulgence. Greater indulgence. There's a quote in Hamlet. Hamlet's mother has remarried after the death of Hamlet's father. She's married Hamlet's uncle, her husband's brother. And I'm going over time, but it's quite the good quote, I have to say. Yeah, he's quite the scene, actually. Oh. Okay. Act 3, Scene 4. Yeah, here we go. He's speaking to his mother and says, Good night, but go not to mine uncle's bed. Assume a virtue if you have it not. That monster custom, who all sense doth eat, and of habits devil, is angel yet in this, that to the use of actions fair and good, he likewise gives a frock or livery that aptly is put on, a kind of uniform that you can wear. Refrain tonight, and that shall lend a kind of easiness to the next abstinence. The next, more easy. For use almost can change the stamp of nature, and either master the devil or throw him out with wondrous potency. So there you have a Shakespeare Vach that supports our point. Follow the regulative principles. Follow them this time, and they'll be easier to follow the next time. And the time after that, still easier. That's the advice given there. The contrary of the advice, well, just sort of do it, and eventually you'll get tired of it. Our recommended pravritti, what is that? Nivritti to Mahapalam. Everyone is trying to enjoy sense gratification, but you get a better result by refraining from sense gratification. So therefore, either brahmachari life or sannyas life, vanaprastha life, no sex, or else grihastha life with regulated sex. And that will give a better result, better happiness, with less misery and less regret. All right, we're 4 minutes over time. Let's stop here. Thank you all very much. And we have, I saw a volunteer. Oh, there's also Anthony and Cleopatra. This one's good too, so we'll get it in there before the bell rings. She makes hungry where most she satisfies. She makes hungry where most she satisfies. It's not that the appetite disappears, but the result of sense gratification is that we want more sense gratification, even if we're not satisfied. It's like eating, we know that when we overeat, we don't say, oh, I've overeaten, let me stop. No, I'm overeating, but still I'm not satisfied. And so we overeat more. So therefore, how do we get happiness in eating? By controlling. All right, that's enough. And that is enough. So let's stop here. And Vijay Krishna Prabhu will do a favor of leading kirtan.
Yes, Maharaj, may I?
Please.
Can you hear my mridanga?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. You're very kind. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnuvad Paramahansa Parivrajakacharya Stotara Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Hridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Sham Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Tham Ki Jai, Navadip Tham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamana Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande. Thank you so much, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. And thank you
Maharaj,
to
you're most welcome.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And, thank you to Haridas, and thank you to all the devotees. And we'll see all glories to Srila.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, and thank you everyone for being here. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai,
Jai.
Jayadvaita Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Premanande.
Hari Bol.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
I don't get to see you on my screen, but
Thank you, Ma.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes.
Gurudev.
Thanks. Haridas Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Jai. Hari Bol.